It was a cold New York morning in the 1960s. Wall Street was booming, skyscrapers were rising, and millions were dreaming. Somewhere in the buzz of that concrete jungle, a young man named Michael Bloomberg was silently watching it all. Not from a penthouse, not from a boardroom, but from the sidelines. He didn't come from a wealthy family. He didn't have connections. But he had something else. He had fire. Not the kind you see in stories. The kind that burns quietly. That whispers to you in the silence. You can do more. The kind that never dies, even when the doors shut on you. Years later, this same man would become a tech mogul, the founder of one of the most powerful business information empires in the world. He would sit in the mayor's chair of New York City, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And along the way, he would redefine what it means to lead, to innovate, and to give back. This is not just the story of a billionaire. It's the story of a boy from Medford, Massachusetts, who dared to dream louder than his reality. It's the story of hustle, rejection, reinvention, and ultimately, unstoppable success. This is the story of Michael Bloomberg. And by the end of this documentary, you may not just admire him, you may feel something shifting inside you. Something saying, if he could do it, maybe, just maybe, I can too. Part 2. Humble Beginnings in Medford. Michael Bloomberg was born on February 14, 1942, in a working-class neighborhood in Medford, Massachusetts, a small city just a few miles from Boston. He wasn't born into privilege. His father, William Bloomberg, worked as a bookkeeper at a local dairy company. His mother, Charlotte, was a homemaker who made sure the home was always filled with discipline and warmth. They weren't wealthy, but they were rich in values. Honesty, hard work, and persistence. From a young age, Mike, as his friends called him, showed signs of curiosity and leadership. He wasn't the top of his class, and he didn't have all the answers. But he had one thing many kids around him didn't: hunger. Not hunger for food, but for opportunity. He mowed lawns, worked as a parking lot attendant, and did any odd job he could find. Every dollar he earned was a reminder. Nothing was going to be handed to him. Medford shaped his foundation, a mix of small-town values and big-time dreams. And while many people accepted their place in the system, Bloomberg always believed he could change the system itself. Not by talking, but by doing. Part 3. A mind for engineering, a heart for business. When it came time for college, Michael Bloomberg didn't head to the Ivy League right away. He attended Johns Hopkins University, studying electrical engineering. He worked as a parking lot attendant during college to pay for his education. No silver spoon, no shortcuts, just hustle. His engineering education gave him a structured way of thinking. Logical, methodical, focused. But something deeper was pulling at him, something beyond equations and circuits. Business, finance, the energy of decision-making, the risk, the reward. It fascinated him. After Johns Hopkins, he pursued an MBA at Harvard Business School. He entered those halls as a working-class kid. He left them with a powerful toolkit, but not a job. He still had to prove himself to the world. Part 4. The Salomon Brothers. Chapter Michael landed a job at Salomon Brothers, a leading Wall Street investment firm. At first, he started in the back office, a space far from glamour, filled with paper, phones, and endless ledgers. But instead of complaining, he learned. Quietly, relentlessly. He studied the way decisions were made, the way deals were structured, the way information flowed. or didn't flow. Eventually, his talent was recognized. He rose through the ranks, moving into the firm's bond trading division. There, he made a name for himself, direct, sharp, and fast. He wasn't always liked, but he was always respected. He was a leader who didn't shout, he executed. Results spoke louder than opinions, but in 1981, everything changed. Part 5, Fired and Free. After nearly 15 years at Salomon Brothers, the firm was sold, and just like that, Bloomberg was out, fired, let go. No soft exit, no golden send-off. One day, he was on the inside. The next day, he was just another guy with a severance check. Many would have seen that as an ending, but Bloomberg saw it as a beginning. He had $10 million in hand and a lifetime of lessons in his head. Instead of joining another firm, he did something crazy, something bold. He decided to build something of his own. And what he built would not just change his life. It would change the very way Wall Street worked. Part 6. The Birth of Bloomberg LP. Michael Bloomberg had a vision, and it wasn't just about making money. It was about solving a problem. During his years at Salomon Brothers, he noticed something. Wall Street was swimming in data, but drowning in confusion. Traders, investors, and analysts had to dig through endless paper, phone calls, and outdated systems just to make sense of market information. He imagined a machine, a device that could sit on every trader's desk and deliver real-time financial data, analytics, and news, all in one place, instantly accessible, accurate, and efficient. So, in 1981, using the $10 million he received from his exit, he founded Innovative Market Systems, what would later become Bloomberg LP. It was risky. He wasn't a coder. He wasn't a tech expert. But he hired smart people. He listened. He learned. He pushed. And slowly, that idea, that little box, began to take shape. Part 7. The terminal that changed Wall Street. The Bloomberg terminal, as it came to be known, was revolutionary. For the first time, traders and financial institutions had access to a real-time data platform that provided everything: stock quotes, bond prices, break-in news, economic trends, all with a few clicks. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't pretty, but it was powerful. At first, no one wanted to buy it. Banks were skeptical. People questioned, why would we need this? But Bloomberg didn't give up. He offered it to Merrill Lynch for a discount. They took the deal, and soon everyone else followed. By the late 1980s, the Bloomberg terminal was becoming a must-have. Wall Street wasn't just watching Bloomberg rise. It was depending on him. Part 8. The culture of getting it done. Inside Bloomberg LP, the culture was intense. Open desks, no private offices. Even Mike himself sat in the middle of the floor like everyone else. There were no layers of bureaucracy. If you had an idea, you spoke up. If you saw a problem, you fixed it. This wasn't just a company, it was a mission. A mission to deliver truth through data, and to never, ever slow down. Bloomberg's leadership style was direct, demanding, and focused on execution. He believed in facts, not fluff, in performance, not promises, and he rewarded people who could think independently and move fast. Part 9. Growing Beyond Finance. By the 1990s, Bloomberg LP was a financial juggernaut, but Mike wasn't satisfied. He expanded into media, launching Bloomberg News, Bloomberg Radio, and later, Bloomberg Television. The idea was simple. If data drives decisions, then information drives influence. He wanted to provide business news that was sharp, smart, and fact-based, cutting through the noise of traditional outlets. Under his leadership, Bloomberg grew into a global empire with thousands of employees and offices in over 100 countries. The company didn't just report on the market, it became a central part of how the market moved. Part 10. A billionaire with a different outlook. By the turn of the millennium, Michael Bloomberg was a billionaire many times over. But unlike others, he didn't flaunt it. He didn't chase headlines or live for luxury. His suits were simple, his habits disciplined, his focus unwavering. Money wasn't his goal, impact was. And in 2001, he shocked everyone by stepping away from his booming business empire to pursue something even more ambitious, leading the greatest city in the world. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't endorsed by the big parties. But once again, Michael Bloomberg did what he always did. He made his own way. Part 11. The Unexpected Candidate. In 2001, just months before the tragic events of 9/11, Michael Bloomberg declared his candidacy for mayor of New York City. People were surprised. He wasn't a career politician. He wasn't backed by decades of public service. What he had was something different, a record of building, fixing, and leading with results. He ran as a Republican in a heavily Democratic city, not because he identified with the party, but because it was the only viable path at the time. Bloomberg didn't promise miracles. He promised management. He didn't offer slogans. He offered solutions. He was a numbers guy entering a world of politics. And yet, that's exactly what New York needed. Then came September 11th. The terrorist attacks devastated the city. Lives were lost, families broken, the economy shaken. New York was reeling. It needed not just a mayor, it needed a stabilizer, a planner, a healer. When Bloomberg was elected that November, he took over a city in crisis. And he didn't flinch. Part 12. Managing Crisis with Clarity. Most politicians would have gone slow, played safe. Not Bloomberg. He immediately began restructuring the city's finances. He raised property taxes, an unpopular move, but one that stabilized the budget. He reformed the school system, took control of public education, and began using data to measure teacher performance and student outcomes. He applied business principles to public service: accountability, transparency, and efficiency. Critics called it cold. Supporters called it courageous. Either way, results followed. Under his leadership, the city recovered jobs, balanced budgets, and even saw crime rates continue to fall. Part 13. Reimagining New York. Bloomberg wasn't content with maintaining the status quo. He wanted to reimagine what New York could be. He invested in infrastructure, public transportation, green spaces, and sustainability. He pushed for smoking bans in public places, calorie labeling on menus, and initiated one of the first major citywide efforts to combat obesity. To some, it felt intrusive. To others, visionary. He saw public health as a policy issue, not just a personal choice, and he wasn't afraid to lead that conversation, even when it meant backlash. Part 14. The Power of Independence. By 2007, Bloomberg had left the Republican Party and registered as an independent. He believed that leadership shouldn't be limited by party lines. To him, the problem wasn't red versus blue. It was competence versus dysfunction. He often said, "If you want to know what I believe, look at what I do, not what I call myself." That idea, that results matter more than labels, defined his political identity. He ran the government like a mission, not a campaign. And in 2009, He ran for a third term as mayor, a move that required changing term limit laws, which stirred controversy. But once again, the voters backed him. Part 15. Legacy of a Mayor. By the time Bloomberg left office in 2013, New York City was safer, cleaner, greener, and more economically diverse than it had been in decades. His administration had added hundreds of miles of bike lanes, created ambitious sustainability plans, and rezoned large swaths of the city for growth. Small businesses were thriving. Tech startups were moving in. Tourism had boomed, and the city had weathered the 2008 financial crisis far better than most. He wasn't the warmest speaker. He didn't charm crowds with poetic speeches, but his legacy wasn't built on words. It was built on action. Part 16. From City Hall to Global Impact. When Michael Bloomberg stepped down as mayor in 2013, many assumed he would return to his company and retire quietly into the world of business. But Bloomberg had no interest in slowing down. In fact, he was just getting started, this time on a global scale. He returned to Bloomberg LP, yes, but only to help it grow further and reinforce its commitment to data-driven journalism. But beyond business, his focus turned to something much bigger than Wall Street or City Hall: the future of the planet. Bloomberg began investing heavily in climate action, public health, and education, not just with his money, but with his time, influence, and networks. He launched Bloomberg Philanthropies, which has since become one of the most active and respected charitable foundations in the world. From banning coal plants to reducing tobacco use, from funding global road safety programs to improving city governments around the world, Bloomberg was on a mission, not to be famous, not to be rich, but to make measurable, lasting change. Part 17. Climate warrior in a suit. Michael Bloomberg isn't your typical environmental activist. He doesn't chain himself to trees or deliver emotional speeches. He does spreadsheets. He funds policies. He organizes mayors. His philosophy is simple. If you can measure it, you can manage it. Under his leadership, Bloomberg Philanthropies launched Beyond Coal, a groundbreaking initiative in partnership with the Sierra Club. The goal was to shut down America's coal plants, not through protest, but through local policy, education, and investment in clean energy. And it worked. By 2020, over 300 coal plants were retired, more than half of the U.S. fleet, making it one of the most successful environmental campaigns in American history. Internationally, Bloomberg took on the role of UN Special Envoy for Climate Ambition and Solutions, working with world leaders to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon future. He didn't seek attention. He sought results. And once again, he delivered. Part 18. Giving like no one else. Michael Bloomberg has pledged to give away the majority of his wealth, and he's already donated over $12 billion to causes ranging from medical research to gun safety, climate innovation, to the arts. But his philanthropy is different. It's not just about writing checks. It's about solving root problems. When he funds education, he asks, how can we track progress? When he backs healthcare, he demands data. His donations come with expectations of transparency, efficiency, and accountability. He believes that good intentions are not enough. Real impact requires real structure. That's why Bloomberg Philanthropies isn't just a funding machine. It's a results engine. Part 19. A brief run for president. In 2020, Bloomberg did something many thought he never would. He entered the race for President of the United States. He ran as a Democrat, positioning himself as a centrist with business experience, executive leadership, and a proven track record on climate, public health, and education. His campaign was bold and self-funded, spending over $1 billion. He skipped the early debates in states, hoping to make a splash on Super Tuesday. But the campaign didn't connect with voters the way he hoped. His straightforward, numbers-first style struggled in a field energized by more emotionally driven candidates. After a disappointing performance, he dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden. For Bloomberg, it wasn't about ego. It was about defeating Donald Trump, someone he viewed as a direct threat to facts, science, and stability. And just like that, he stepped back from the race, but not from the fight. Part 20. The legacy of doing today. Michael Bloomberg stands as one of the most influential private citizens in the world. Not just because he's a billionaire, not because he's a former mayor, but because of how he's used his resources, time, money, influence, to reshape the world. He's built a global business from scratch. He's led the biggest city in America through crises. He's helped shut down hundreds of coal plants. He's funded scholarships, backed mayors, saved lives, and empowered young people through education. He doesn't wait for change. He builds it. For the American student watching this, whether from a big city or a small town, Bloomberg's story teaches a powerful lesson. You don't need to start with power to create it. All you need is discipline, purpose, and the willingness to act. So whether you're learning English, dreaming of business, or hoping to make a difference, remember this. Michael Bloomberg was just a kid from Medford with no connections, no shortcuts, and no excuse. And he changed the world, one smart decision at a time. You too have the power to lead, even if no one sees it yet. Leadership doesn't start with a title. It starts with a decision. To show up, to learn, to try, to act. So start now. Speak clearly, think boldly, dream responsibly, work relentlessly. The world doesn't need more talkers. It needs doers, builders, thinkers like you. Stay inspired, stay grounded, stay curious. Because your story, like Bloomberg's, is still being written.